All eyes are on negotiators at the UN Climate Summit in Glasgow on what's scheduled to be the last day of the talks. But two major sticking points could send the summit into overtime. Negotiators appear to be backing away from a call to end all use of coal and phase out fossil fuel subsidies completely. But the latest draft proposals are giving hope to poor countries for more financial support to cope with climate change. The main aim of this meeting is to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, a cap scientists say could prevent the worst. Now, the EU's climate policy chief stressed just how important it was to keep warming below 1.5 degrees, highlighting the plight of the world's most vulnerable communities.
This is personal. This is not about politics. And I don't live in Palau. I don't live on Barbados. I don't live on the Marshall Islands. But there it's even far more personal because you're standing with your feet in the water. And this is what we need to address today. We need to make sure major emitters reduce their emissions so that we keep 1.5 alive. That needs to be at the heart of our conclusions today.
Well, joining me now is Harjit Singh from Climate Action Network International. He's in Glasgow. A draft of the final document has been released and we've seen language on the phasing out of fossil fuels watered down, but stronger language on nations reviewing their emission reductions targets annually. Do you see that as a reasonable compromise?
Well, not at all. It is very unfortunate and absolutely insufficient. It is the first time we got fossil fuels in the document. It's not even there in the Paris Agreement. We are late by 30 years and impacts are everywhere, as we have seen, not only in developed but developing countries. It does mention coal, but why not oil and gas? We have to target all fossil fuels and fossil fuel companies and production head on. So the urgency is lacking. We have to stop expansion. We have to phase out equitably and implement a fair and just transition for workers and communities. So what is mentioned right now doesn't take us far enough.
Harjit, the summit began with countries needing to dramatically reduce their greenhouse gas emissions by half before 2030. We are nowhere near that as it currently stands. How disappointing is that?
Well, it is disappointing and frustrating at the same time. This particular conference was supposed to focus on near-term targets because science tells us that we have to halve the emissions now and by 2030. Whereas we came up with a big banner of net zero, which is, riddled with just announcements and which can delay action and evade responsibility. So the disproportionate focus on net zero has actually derailed us quite a bit. And we have talked very little about 2030 and near-term targets, which is the need of the hour if we have to really stay below 1.5 degrees.
So as you read the room then, who or what is holding up progress here?
Well, very clearly, it's the major emitters, but particularly US, Australia, Japan, Norway, and they are the ones who are still pushing for, net zero targets, and particularly the UK presidency that came with that idea of everybody announcing net zero and focusing little on 2030. So that's exactly the reason why we have not made enough progress. And we should have focused just on near-term targets. And these countries who still want to give a free pass to fossil fuel companies so that they can buy more time, that is the real cause why we are not there where we were supposed to be.
So, two-part question. Did you dare to dream before this? Did you come to this summit with high hopes? And are you leaving with them fulfilled?
Well, these conference of parties are not the only places that are going to deliver ambition, but we did come here with the hope that it's going to set the narrative, it's going to provide a direction, and it's going to tell the world that how serious we are as world leaders, and especially when the summit was organized in the beginning. But we only heard grand announcements and not really real action. In fact, there was so much of disconnect. We heard announcements in terms of trillions, and here inside in the negotiations, we are even struggling to get $100 billion, which is a commitment that goes back to 2009. So total disconnect between the outside and the inside.
From Glasgow, Harjit Singh from Climate Action Network International. Thanks so much for your time.